In today's video, we're going to answer the question, how much do I need to retire, by breaking down how much you need to save to spend 40, 60, and $80,000 in retirement. Over the past 11 years operating in the financial industry, this question remains one of the most frequently asked questions I get, and quite often the answer is surprisingly better than you think. The trouble is, with rule of thumb advice like the 4% rule, it is very common for retirees to overestimate how much money they actually need to retire, leaving many to delay unnecessarily. Well, in today's video, we're going to solve this problem by walking you through the exact conditions to retire if you were to spend 40, 60, or $80,000 a year. So as we jump into our case study, we have to set kind of some other conditions that are relevant. When you're trying to figure out how much you would need to retire, there are many assumptions that you have that are going to go into that kind of, let's call it like that equation, right? So some of those things are, first of all, what age are you going to retire at? Another one would be, are you married or single, divorced, or are you a widower? Other things would be, longevity. Do you have a family history of living a really long time or not so much? Okay. Other conditions would be, what types of retirement assets do you have? Do you have income sources like Social Security? Most people, obviously. Do you have something like a pension or rental income or other sources of income? Are you going to work in retirement a little bit, part-time, or do consulting, or not? Other things to begin to consider would be like, what types of investment accounts do you have? Is all your money in brokerage accounts or pre-tax retirement accounts like 401ks or IRAs? And let's see, yeah, and also how much or how is your money invested, right? Is it all concentrated in like some company stock, or is it broadly diversified already, or that sort of thing? So for our example, to determine those spending amounts, we're going to look at a couple that lives in Tennessee. The husband is 60 years old, the wife is 58 years old, and they both are entitled to Social Security benefits. If the husband waits until full retirement age, he would get $3,600 a month, and his wife would get $2,600 a month. So first, I want to look at how much they would each need to save, or as a household, would they need in order to retire with 40, 60, or $80,000 a year. And we're going to look at it with no Social Security. And the reason I'm doing this is to really emphasize and contrast the difference between, or I should say, the reason I want to break down the example of showing these spending amounts with Social Security and without Social Security is to really highlight the shortcomings of things like the 4% rule, and why relying on that too heavily is going to maybe misguide you, or just like I said earlier, leave you retiring a lot later than you need to. So I'm going to hop over. Let's take a look at the screen. All right, so looking at this first scenario, for somebody to spend $40,000 a year, that's about $3,300 a month. They would need to save $900, or let's just say, come on, about $900,000 in order to sustain that spending. I chuckle a little bit because with financial planning, it's so easy for us to just look at assumptions and get real precise. We just always want to keep in mind that there are a lot of variables here. There's a lot of things, in fact, most things totally outside of our control. So with all of these, obviously, these are estimates. These are based on good information. It's not, a guarantee of outcomes, or, a guarantee of results or what will happen in the future. That's just silly to assume all that. So anyway, this person here, summary, $900,000 is what they would need in order to have that. All right, so looking at the results for this first scenario, you can see that down here, this is a summary of some analytics about stress testing the plan. Okay, so if we were to run this, stress test, run this plan through different market returns, looking back at the stock market and other investment markets like the bond market over like 150 years, how often does this plan work out? What kind of adjustments might be required and that sort of thing. And frankly, what we're looking at on the screen, without getting all the details, $900,000, $40,000 a year adjusted for inflation for a couple starting at 60, 58, going into their 90s, they're in great shape. This would work, all right? Very, very high likelihood that this is going to work out. Now, these stats that you're looking at on the screen, these are different than like just your straight Monte Carlo analysis, because I think that's another one of these kind of rule of thumb, kind of simple planning methods that really can kind of lead us astray, as it were. It's going to give us some information that can kind of be a little bit misguided. Not a bad tool necessarily, but really required to interpret that. All right, so on the screen for this client, $900,000 a year, their plan is looking really good that this is going to work out. They're going to be able to have $40,000 a year adjusted for inflation for basically, starting at age 60, 58, going into their 90s. They're in great shape. Now we're looking at a plan for $60,000 a year of income. And you can see on this summary here, I'm not going to go into all the kind of the risk metrics. I've done that. It takes a while for that all to load up. But basically, high success rate, confident, it's going to work out most likely, about 1.4 million. Now, if you look at the distribution rate on these plans, it's a little bit above 4%. It ends up being about 4.4, 4.5 in that area, but very strong plan. Now let's look at a scenario of $80,000 a year with no Social Security. Okay, so now pretty similar, maybe what you would expect here with the ratios of increase in income and how the portfolio is changing from 900 to 1.4. Now we're looking at spending $80,000 a year, a little over $6,500 a month of income, and you're needing to save about 1.8 million. Okay, so now let's look at this in a summary. To have 40, 60, or $80,000 a year, retiring, an early retiree type situation, at age 60 and 58, you're looking at saving 900, 1.4, or 1.8 million. Okay, now if you're able to do that, awesome. But let's look at the impact of Social Security. If we were to factor that in, how would that impact all of these plans, right? And with the Social Security scenario for all of these income amounts, the scenario that I chose to use is that the higher earning spouse and the older spouse, which is the husband in this case, is going to delay their benefit all the way until age 70 to maximize their benefit. Not only that, but it's going to maximize the survivor benefit. And that's typically what's most important to me when making a retirement plan for a couple, is making sure that surviving spouse is going to have financial security and be in a great spot. Now the wife, she's going to claim her own benefit at her full retirement age. So remember, they're retiring at 60 and 58, and then they're going to delay taking Social Security up until she'll take hers at 67, he'll take his at age 70. All right, so let's see how that impacts the numbers here. So going back to the $40,000, if we look at this with Social Security, there's a huge difference. Before it was $900,000. For this situation, $500,000, $400,000 less to retire. And you can really see, you know what? I think this is great. I think this is a really good chart to show. So on the chart in front of us, what we're really looking at here is their spending over time. And you can see these different colors. I'll walk through these. So the yellow represents taking money out of their portfolio, and then the two different Social Security benefits. The husband's here is this kind of light blue, and the wife is this dark blue Social Security benefit. So you can see they're retiring now, $40,000 a year. So we got about, a little over, about $3,300 a month. And you can see here for, let's see, 9-ish, 10 years, they're just basically living off of their portfolio. So you can see 500,000, simple math, take, 40,000, times 10, that'd be $400,000. We got to account for inflation. There's always risk of markets going up and down. So that's why you need a little bit extra, a little bit of cushion. But you can see that the reason why they need so much less is that basically once they get to when Social Security is claimed, the wife's Social Security alone is going to make, look at the difference in here. On this blue here, it's providing, let's see, $3,100 a month. Now remember I said 26, but we have to account for inflation. So her Social Security benefit alone is covering basically, almost all of their, needed or desired income amount. Once the husband's kicks in, boom, it's just a game changer, and you can see how much they need. So another thing to mention here, in all these scenarios, I basically assumed that at the end of their retirement, they would end with as much money as they started with. So, for risk management, what if they need long-term care, that sort of thing. So now let's jump to $60,000 with Social Security. Same Social Security claiming strategy. And you can see in this scenario, $60,000 a year, instead of needing 1.4 million, 600,000. It's just pretty incredible. Looking at the cash flow here, kind of the, same situation that you would, that you might expect. So in the beginning years, about $5,000 a month is coming out of the portfolio. Here they go. And then once they get to here, Social Security, they're good to go, right? The real kind of risk here of retirement for them is just, investing in some really safe stuff that's just going to be consistent, give them a little bit of return, and cover them for 10 years because, once they're there, boom, they're golden. They're going to be covered and even have a little bit left that can continue to grow. and frankly, reinvest some of that Social Security income that they're not going to be using, um, and reinvest that, right, for to build a legacy. Okay, let's look at the last one, $880,000 with Social Security. So $80,000 with Social Security. Let's take a look at their summary page here. Remember, before it was 1.8 million, and now we're looking at 800,000 to provide this, this spending amount for retirement. I mean, I don't know. I can't think of a better way to illustrate how rule of thumb advice, like just using the 4% rule, can kind of, lead a retiree or, soon to be, hope to be retiree, lead them in the wrong direction, lead them to saving more than they actually need to, leading them to continue to work beyond the point that they really need to or really want to, or from their health standpoint, can really do so in a good way. Lead them to stress more about their retirement and their finances than they need to. And you can see that all of these things, they lead to more stress, lower quality of life during your working years. So that's why it's really important to actually map out a plan in detail in order to, see what the numbers really look like. Now you've understood how much you need to retire, you can work backwards to build out your own retirement savings plan. However, there are factors of retirement planning I haven't been able to consider in this short video. If you want answers to some of retirement's difficult questions, click the link in the description.